Good evening. I hope you're doing well tonight. Now, food, glorious food. What wouldn't we give for that extra bit more? That's all we live for. Why should we be fated to do nothing but brood on food, magical food, wonderful food, marvelous food, fabulous food? These are the lyrics of the 1968 musical on the story of Oliver Twist, a story of a half-starving and malnourished orphan boy and his friends dreaming of this elusive commodity, food. But back to reality today, as the impacts of climate change continue to intensify and global shocks upset business as usual, Sub-Saharan Africa is feeling the impact of what looks like a perfect storm, or a trifecta of doom. 3 Fs: food, fuel, and fertilizer crisis, worsened by the war in Ukraine, the lingering damaging effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, rising inflation, rising debt, and extreme weather. Now, to be frank, we know inflation levels urgently need to be controlled, and the burden of debt made more sustainable. We know that. But I put it to you that no other priority is more pressing than addressing food security, or rather food insecurity, to safeguard Africa's 1 billion people and protect their human development. Why, you may ask? Well, be your brother's keeper. And at least 1 out of 5 of your fellow African brothers and sisters go to bed hungry every night. 140 million others facing desperate food insecurity. This is according to the 2022 Global Report on Food. And so tonight, we attempt to chart why we're here, where here is, and what can be done about it by governments, business, communities, and ultimately, you and I. I'm Victor Muyakane. Good evening. But first, the news. Tonight, former IEBC chair Wafula Chebukati insists that the technology used in last year's election was above board.
The paper highlights the importance of speed, transparency, and auditability in making the tally reports publicly available, and sets a standard that can be applied to election practice in other countries in the region.
Hitting out at his critics, including Third Way Alliance Party leader Dr. Ekuru Okot. Interior CS Kithure Kindiki vows to rein in on those causing the country's passport crisis.
Many Kenyans have suffered from that place. And we will take very drastic action. If need be, we'll seal off the place and declare it a scene of crime.
And parents of Gishu students in the Finland education saga now threaten to begin the process of impeachment for the county leadership.
We are going to marshal our wazazi na wengine tuanze kuweka second adjust to impeach the governor and the senator.
They say they will take their anger to the streets if nothing is done fast. And tonight on Insight, we talk about how to make sure that our food is healthy and plentiful, even with the vagaries of climate change. Right, good evening. My name is Victor Muyakade, and on sign language this evening is Catherine Simaloy. Thank you for joining us. Later on, we'll be talking about food security. And I think that's about where my sign language knowledge ends. I leave it to Catherine as the expert. Good people, shall we find out what's happened in our country this evening? Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has vowed to crack the whip on corruption at the Immigration Department at Nyayo House, saying he's contemplating sealing it off as a scene of crime over the delays in passport processing and issuance. Kindiki alluding that the corruption at Nyayo House is a contributing factor to the cases of insecurity witnessed in the country. Sheila Chelangant with more.
Many Kenyans have suffered from that place. And we will take very drastic action. If need be, we'll seal off the place and declare it a scene of crime.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki today waging war on corrupt officials at the Immigration Department that has for so long been marred with complaints from Kenyans on the delays in passport issuance.
Done impromptu visits there at very odd hours. As early as 6 a.m., you'll find Kenyans queuing all the way to Teleposta. I don't know, it's a bad image. And so we will rid that place of all criminals, including the brokers who extort money around there.
The CS Stanley noting that he will take up the role to clean up Nyayo House from the grip of corrupt officials, faulting the insecurity concerns being faced in the country on these rogue officials at Nyayo House.
It appears to me that perhaps some of the challenges we are having around terrorism could be perpetuated through some of these practices. It's going to be impossible going forward for a person who does not qualify to get a passport or an ID of the Republic of Kenya.
As of now, the passport backlog stands at 58,000, while on a daily, the Immigration Department is now processing 5,000 passports.
So we have got some appropriations in aid now. We are increasing the capacity, and I believe by the next, when I give my next public accountability statement in a month's time, I will have reports on where we are. We will clear that backlog.
According to the CS, the waiting time is expected to be reduced to 7 days in the future, with further plans of making it come down to 3 days and later within even 24 hours. As the CS promises to clean up the passport mess, the House Committee also wants the ministry to shorten the processing time of national identification cards. Sheila Chelangat for TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Sheila, for that. Now, Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu has assured all first-year students who will be joining universities starting next week that they will do so without any hindrances. Appearing before the Parliamentary Education Committee, CS Machogu said that no student will be sent home for lack of school fees. This coming as hundreds of university students jam HELB offices after challenges emerged in accessing the funding portal. And Reen Kilemi with more.
It has now emerged that a large percentage of students may not report to universities on time following delays in funding of universities and colleges through the new funding model that aims at primarily benefiting students from extremely poor backgrounds.
Our greatest concern is this burden is likely to fall on our shoulders because large majority of our constituents fall within the category of vulnerable and extremely needy.
Appearing before the National Assembly Committee on Education, Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu had a rough time defending the new university funding model that has so far seen only 30% of university applicants successfully apply for funding.
We have been trying to educate and sensitize the prospective and continuing students to understand the new funding model and also the old students, second to 50 year, to be able to know that yes, they are not part of the new system. The ones joining first year are the only ones which will be affected by this new system.
The education boss also told the committee that there was no need to worry as the government would be doing circulars to universities to allow students to be absorbed in the institutions, even though they are yet to receive their funding.
Disbursement of scholarships and loans will be based on the opening days, and we have been able to inform our vice chancellors that yes, we know others are opening this coming week, so they will be able to give us a little bit of time in order for us to expedite on the process and disperse the funds accordingly.
Meanwhile, university students will be required to apply for loans and scholarships every year so as to enable the Higher Education Loans Board HELB to plan for their budget responsibly. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Thank you, Andrin. Now, Gishu County parents who had earlier threatened to protest during the devolution conference week have now made it clear that their patience is running out. The parents who had been assured by the president that the leaders would be held accountable have now said that nothing is being done to help their situation, and the only way to get justice is by going to the streets to protest and have their money back.
Even before the dust settles on the arrest and arraignment in court of former Gishu Governor and Senator Jackson Mandago, parents and students involved in the Finland airlift saga remain unsettled on the issue that continues to cause many sleepless nights.
Septemba wengine wako na barua waende shule. Wakati serikali wanaendelea na maneno yao ya investigation, hatuwezi zuia hao wataendelea.
The parents who postponed their protest that was to be held on the auspices of the devolution conference have now threatened to go back to the streets if the matter concerning the Finland airlift program is not resolved.
Maandamano tukianza Monday, hatutafanya town peke yake. Tunatafuta kalenda yako, ukiwa inapkoi tuko pale.
The parents, who are now intertwined in a web of back and forth with the county government, say the money meant for their children's education should be given back, considering they're still with the children at home.
Hiyo ndio tunasimamia hata sisi. Tunataka hiyo pesa haraka haraka. Tupewe hiyo pesa, watoto waende shule. Septemba wengine wako na barua waende shule. Wakati serikali wanaendelea na maneno yao ya investigation, hatuwezi zuia hao wataendelea.
In fits of rage, they say they are not asking anymore. Rather, they are demanding for their money back so that they can send their kids to school and not waste time.
Vile inaendelea. Kama mimi mwenyewe nilikupatia barua nikakwambia mtoto ampata wa barua. Mulishika na senator. Sijui mulishika mkaona ilikuwa barua ama ilikuwa ni nini. Mtupe pesa zetu watoto wetu waende shule.
They say failure by the county government of Gishu to sort them out will result in a motion being presented in the county assembly to impeach the governor and the senator.
Wakijaribu hiyo route, we are going to marshal our wazazi na wengine tuanze kuweka second just to impeach the governor and the senator.
Last week, President William Ruto broke his silence on the matter, stating that all those responsible will be held culpable.
Kama kuna mtu alikula hiyo pesa, ajipange kulipa mapema ama ataingia mtabani. Ndio. Hakuna maneno ya kubembelezana.
Vera Alberta, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, away from matters education to matters drugs. And the drug trafficking suspect in Ngara, Nairobi, Teresia Wanjiru, is contemplating taking legal action against the state in the event that the court on Monday next week rules that she has no case to answer. Wanjiru was arrested first before the police later nabbed Nancy Kigunzu, alias Mathe Wangara. Last week, JKIA Court Magistrate Angela Njeri Thuku is expected, this Mathe Wangara person was nabbed last week. Next week, the JKIA Court Magistrate Angela Njeri Thuku is expected to make a ruling on who between the two, that is Teresia and Nancy, will face charges of drug trafficking. And as Mike Kagwongo reports, Teresia's lawyer Brian Hisa says that they may consider legal action against the state if the court rules in their favor.
The government may face a lawsuit from drug trafficking suspect Teresia Wanjiru if the JKIA court on Monday next week rules that she has no case to answer. Through her lawyer Brian Hisa, Wanjiru says she has undergone tough times, including getting sick while in police custody. If the court rules that she has no case to answer, she will sue the government.
Her family has been exposed to the media. Her name, her face, she's now been associated with a complex, something she does not understand, the drug business. She's totally blue, she's totally green. She does not know what all this is about.
Teresia first hit the headlines on Tuesday last week after sleuths from the Anti-Narcotics Unit and the Transnational Organized Crime Unit of the DCI conducted a raid in the sprawling slums of Karioa in Nairobi's Ngara neighborhood, where consignment of cannabis sativa and 13.4 million shillings in cash was recovered. Her whereabouts will remain unclear, with her family stating that she could not access healthcare while behind the bus.
We have a problem.
Teresia will be arraigned on Wednesday as the JKIA-based court ruled on bail terms in the case. Facing Nancy Indoveri, said to be the initial suspect that police were looking for. JKIA Magistrate Angela Njeri Dhoku on Wednesday said she will deliver a ruling on Monday on who between Teresia and Nancy will face charges.
For our client's case, we believe that it was just a case of mistaken identity. It was just a case of her being at the wrong place, at the right place, because she was actually at her food stall. She was at the right place, but it was simply at the wrong time. And that's when the arrest perhaps happened. So we believe that it's a case of mistaken identity, but we have allowed the police, the prosecution, to complete the investigation.
Nancy was arrested on Monday this week, few days after Teresia was apprehended by police. They were both claimed to be Madeo Wangara, a prime suspect in drug trafficking and handling of bang in Nairobi's Ngara estate. In her judgment, the magistrate affirmed that the state has valid grounds to hold the suspects in custody. Magistrate Dhoku also ordered the determination of the ages of the two minors and the subsequent submission of the report to the court. Wanjiru is in custody at the JKIA police station, while Nancy is being held at the Muthaiga police station. Police are going on with investigations to determine the main suspect between the two. Mike Kagwongo, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mike. Now, the former chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that is IEBC, says that in August 2022, Kenya held its freest, fairest and most credible election in its history. His sentiments, however, did not seem to sit well with the former presidential hopeful Ekuru Aukot, and a clash happened between the two. George Maringa with more.
From this picture posted on Twitter just 4 days ago on 20th August, captioned "Laughter Transcends Generations," former chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, has recently shared moments of his life on social media after the elections.
Transparency in elections.
Exactly 1 year since the August 2022 general election, Chebukati has broken his silence in the last polls in which he was the referee. Chebukati, in his words, saying that, quote, "In August 2022, Kenya held its freest, fairest and most credible election in its history."
My paper is on the role of technology in improving the integrity of the electoral process, and particularly focusing on Kenya.
Chebukati said so when he recently presented a paper titled "Role of Technology in Improving the Integrity of the Electoral Process in Kenya." The former chairman shared his presentation on social media.
This paper is about the 2022 elections in Kenya, and in particular focusing on the transmission of the tally results.
According to him, 99.9% of presidential result forms were electronically submitted to the public portal within 24 hours of closure of polls.
This paper is about the 2022 elections in Kenya, and in particular focusing on the transmission of the tally results.
His sentiments, however, did not sit well with former presidential hopeful Ekuru Aukot, who questioned how Chebukati handled the election. Chebukati, on his part, did not shy away from responding to Aukot by slamming him that he did not meet the requirements to stand as a presidential candidate in 2022. Wafula Chebukati served as chairman of the IEBC between 2017 and January 2023. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, residents of Juhudi and Salama villages in Lamu County are living in fear. This is after terrorists attacked the camp where they sought temporary shelter due to the ongoing state of insecurity in the area. And as Elizabeth Atieno now reports, the latest attack comes at a time when the government, through the Ministry of Interior, announces plans to declare Boni Forest as a buffer zone.
Tension is still high in Lamu County following the terror attacks that have forced over 300 people to seek refuge at Juhudi Primary School. They, however, now say their efforts to lead a peaceful life were dashed as suspected armed terrorists fired shots at their camp on Wednesday night. The displaced residents, now left without a place to live, were rescued by police officers who were able to chase the suspected Al-Shabaab terrorists. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki has stated that the government is up in arms to ensure peace is restored in the volatile Lamu Island and also improve the state of infrastructure in the county.
We are going to open up 6 security roads in Lamu immediately.
CS Kindiki now says the government will instill a buffer zone at the Boni Forest.
We are going to draw a cut line because some of the problems are being caused by people who have encroached into the Boni Forest, and so there must be a cut line so that we know whoever, just like we have done in the other places, we say whoever is inside certain coordinates must leave so that we manage security.
The Wednesday night attack happened just hours after Inspector General of Police Japhet Koome issued a stern warning to the terrorists that the government will deal with them mercilessly.
If somebody is trying to touch, to ban somebody else, that is action. A serious offense.
On Tuesday this week, 8 houses were set ablaze in Salama village, where 2 people were killed in 3 separate attacks.
Now there are people, some of them are pretending they are doing agriculture, but they are right inside the forest, and we've discovered some of them could be harboring criminals, and we have also discovered there are people taking advantage of historical injustices to aid and abet terror attacks.
In the recent days, Lamu County has been subject to frequent attacks believed to be acts of terrorism. On the 1st of August, 2 people lost their lives and 10 others were injured following the attacks. 1 week ago, another attack was reported in Milhoi area where 3 people were killed. Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
Still, Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki has confirmed that the country's security is stable despite the numerous areas experiencing security threats. This as he revealed a plan to remove police officers manning traffic roadblocks and redeploy them on patrols as at November 1st this year. Speaking before the National Assembly Security Committee, CS Kindiki appeared to shed light on various matters around security, and the CS told the committee that attacks at the Sondo area between Kericho and Kisumu areas were actually politically instigated. Let's take a look.
Appearing before the National Administration and Internal Security Committee of the National Assembly, the Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki assured Kenyans of security even as the country records a steep rise in the number of cases of insecurity from banditry to terror attacks. He further revealed from 1st of November this year, there will be no traffic roadblocks manned by police. Instead, these officers will be deployed all over the country to intensify patrols to ensure law and order. According to Kindiki, the new technology would see the deployment of an electronic surveillance technique that will eliminate the need for traffic cops to man traffic jams on the road.
The sighting of our security operation comes from time to time because a place can be a corridor for movement of stolen livestock now. But as soon as you seal that corridor, criminals invent another route elsewhere. So you have to devise a way of either establishing a new camp or even moving this one, because what we are chasing for is peace. What we are chasing is crime prevention. It's not just the sighting of those camps.
On the Sondo clashes between the Kericho-Kisumu border, where over 15 people have lost their lives, Kindiki told the committee that the recent clashes were fueled politically, stating that disciplinary action has commenced on officers who showed laxity on the matter, hence loss of lives.
A meeting that the Kisumu County leaders held in your office, and you welcomed all of us. And the agreement at that particular time was that we are going to have a complete overhaul of the security personnel within Kisumu County, because most of them have served for more than 7 years in the same capacity within the same areas, meaning that they are now localized and unable to detach themselves from situations that happen locally.
We also realized that there were gaps, and we have already taken we have initiated disciplinary action against some officers whose laxity and connivance has led to this senseless loss of lives.
On Lamu attacks, as well as recent attacks in the northern region part of the country, Kindiki told MPs his docket seeks to create a cut line in Boni Forest following a spate of violent attacks over perennial terror attacks in the coastal county, warning residents who might be working with terrorists that their days are numbered.
But right now there are people, some of them are pretending they are doing agriculture, but they are right inside the forest. And we've discovered some of them could be harboring criminals. And we have also discovered there are people taking advantage of historical injustices to aid and abet terror attacks. So we are on top of things. I have been there as chair sometimes covertly, even this week.
Kindiki outlined several measures, including recruiting 2,057 police reservists and over 1,000 police officers to help salvage the situation in the affected areas. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47, Nairobi.
Tonight, the joint technical team of the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio National Dialogue Committee will tomorrow present its report. This is actually news that we've received tonight, that this joint technical team of Kenya Kwanza and Azimio National Dialogue Committee will tomorrow present their report on the agenda of the talks. A source in the technical team said that the team has made good progress, saying that the report has endorsed nearly all issues of mutual interest to Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. But as Apollo Kamau reports, President William Ruto has dismissed a power-sharing deal or a handshake from the ongoing talks.
With questions surrounding the outcome of its recommendations to resolve the political standoff between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, the National Dialogue team will on Friday once again brief the limelight to receive a report from its Joint Technical Committee that has been working since Monday this week to set and harmonize the agenda of the talks. This in the backdrop of hardline stances from President William Ruto, who launched various roads in Nyandarua County, telling the country to forget about a power-sharing deal from the talks deliberations, while Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua launched a broadside at Jeremiah Kioni, who leads the Azimio technical team.
Hii serikali hii, mimi nawaambia hii serikali ni ya mahasla. Hakuna nusu mkate, hakuna handshake, hakuna hiyo borojo. Hawa wananchi walimaliza kazi ya viongozi tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8, wakagawa viti yote.
Huyu mzee akitendawili, unajua aliharibu Uhuru Kenyatta mtoto wetu. Si aliharibu Uhuru Kenyatta? Juzi ameingia hapa Ndaragwa, amechukua mtoto wetu anaitwa Kioni. Amemchanganya, siku hizi anavaa sufuria kwa kichwa. Kama kuna mtu ametutia hasara katika Ndaragwa na Nyandarua ni huyu mzee akitendawili.
A source in the Joint Technical Team said the committee headed by Kioni of Azimio and Kenya Kwanza's Dr. Muthomi Thiankolu said the team has made good progress on issues of mutual interest between the two sides. The technical team is said to have clustered the issues to be considered in the talks with the reconstitution of IEBC and the audit of the 2022 election results to be considered jointly. The contentious issue of the cost of living, the 2/3 gender rule, other economic issues, national unity, and matters of governance are also part of the agenda, as well as the NGCDF Fund and the Senate Oversight Fund. The Office of the Official Opposition Leader and the National Government Affirmative Fund, the fidelity of political parties, will also be on the agenda. The National Dialogue team has vowed not to be intimidated by the hostile political climate, dismissing the talks as a waste of time.
Na niwaeleza ingine,
hata wafanye nini, waongee, wanyamaze, kitu inaitwa mkate nusu hakuna.
The Senate will on Tuesday this coming week pass a motion to anchor the national dialogue team in the law, paving way for the 60-day deadline for the team to come up with a report. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Right, time now for some business. And the Kenya Revenue Authority will be expanding its tax net by leveraging on technology to seal any tax gaps leading to revenue losses. This is according to the newly sworn-in Commissioner General Humphrey Mulongo, who says that Kenya may finally hit the 3 trillion tax mark in the next financial year. This is, of course, with the enactment of the national tax policy. The new authority boss, who fills the shoes of resigned former CG Githu Mburu, says that he is looking to shake up the tax collection agency to ensure a smooth and efficient running of the affairs in the institution.
A raft of reforms is in the offing for the Kenya Revenue Authority as Humphrey Mulongo takes the helm, with a colourful career that set off in the early 1990s.
Having been appointed as the Commissioner General of the Kenya Revenue Authority, do swear that I will be true and faithful to the best of my ability and power in the execution of the trust committed to my charge and inspection.
The tax collection agency has for the longest time struggled with a stable and predictable taxation policy framework that has had a number of local and international firms on their toes.
Even in the recent past, you've seen what has happened in the area of technology. We now have machine learning modules, we have big data analytics, we have artificial intelligence. So ours is really to see how we are going to harness this advancement in technology and bring that to the fore to really help simplify the tax administration process and just make the tax experience process for the taxpayers much more palatable.
While taking his oath of office, the new Commissioner General said a new system where fairness and equity will predict the revenue owed to the taxman by individuals and businesses.
So that we can drive compliance, facilitate enforcement, increase the tax base, and ultimately reach the targets, which, as Mr. Chair put out there, we are looking at going for the 3 trillion target and then growing from there.
Furthermore, he says an integrated system where accurate and open deductions will be calculated will be used to ensure businesses are not shadowed by punitive taxation.
Also, the spirit of the Finance Act 2023 was to drive towards tax clarity. So that is a basic premise, that we want to get tax clarity, that you have tax policies that are going to be in place for the long term to provide for that predictability and enable, as you've said, business to have an easy way of understanding what is expected of them from an obligation standpoint.
Hibak Said for TV47.
Now, the central bank maintaining the 10.5-point base rate till the end of this year would be a green flag for the banking sector, citing positive growth for the end-year results despite the economy plateauing. All this means that NCBA Bank, who just announced a half-year profit after tax of 9.3 billion, denotes a 20-year-on-year growth. Now, believe with increasing customer deposits to this bank, NCBA, the asset base would be competitive with other banks in the country.
NCBA Group has reported a 1.75% interim dividend for the first half of 2023 after announcing a 12.4 billion shilling profit before tax during the same period. The group notes this adds to an overall growth of 35% for the 6 months.
£1.75. And I'd say now when you look at our numbers, growth in all aspects,
growth in our total assets, of 9%. We've grown our profit before tax by 11%.
NCBA Group Managing Director John Gashora says this was further propelled by a customer deposit growth of 10%, bringing the total asset base to 660 billion shillings.
But we do take recognition of how long sometimes it takes to resolve NPLs. Yeah, because one, you could be in court with a customer and you need to resolve that. Two, you could be trying to dispose of control at time. Three, trying to work through with them and they're restructuring their business so that they can get back onto flight.
The financial firm believes if the 10.5 base rate passed by the Monetary Policy Committee is sustained, the banking sector will thrive despite the prevailing macroeconomic pressures.
In their last decision, they took a raft of actions with regard to the new framework for implementing monetary policy that we think are very positive, net-net. So the interest rate corridor is a very good new inclusion from the MPC.
And as for the future revenue expectations, for Q3 of last year, the performance was quite exemplary. It was a 98% growth. Could you maybe tell us from then, how has the growth trajectory been, and what are some of the steps that you are taking to ensure that in the coming quarters and in the coming half year and even full year, that you will be able to have this type of growth again?
So last year, I must say, we had a few very positive wins, if you may, and one of them was on the FX side. I think we grew our foreign exchange income last year quite significantly, and that contributed to that 93% growth that you saw. Obviously, today we're talking of comparison from a higher base. Last year was a high base, so today reporting a 20% growth in PAT to me is a very good performance, given the high base that we saw last year. And also considering that in the results that we have released, if you look at purely FX, year over year, we are down 1 billion shillings on FX.
Hibak Said for TV 47.
And on that note, by Hibak Said, we want to take a short break. When we return on Insight tonight, we'll look at your food, my food, our food, and making sure that this food is still on our plate, regardless of the pressures of climate change for all of us in this country and in this continent. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center, the premier events venue. Our state-of-the-art facilities are designed to meet all your needs, from large-scale conferences to intimate meetings and everything in between. Located in the heart of Thika, the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center offers stunning views of the city skyline and is easily accessible from all major transportation hubs. Our facility features ample parking, free Wi-Fi, advanced audiovisual equipment, and our technical team is always on hand to ensure your event runs smoothly and seamlessly. Don't take our word for it. Make your next event unforgettable at the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center. Contact us today for bookings and reservations. Email multimedia@mku.ac.ke or call us on 0708 212204 or 0727 441733 or 0721 438 629 to learn more about our services and book your event.
Get ready for a heartwarming experience like never before. Starting this Sunday on Sea for Sunday, you are cordially invited to the Royal Assembly Church.
When you understand spiritual principles, you take charge on the earthly realm. Jesus paid the price for you and I to bring us unto the Father, to have a relationship with Him.
You can pursue any other thing in life, but if you are not in sync with God's plan for your own life, you will not have fulfillment.
Join us at the Royal Assembly Church and let the spirit of togetherness fill your heart.
Radio 47, tuko nawe mchana kutwa na usiku kucha. 95.5 Kakamega. Tunavuma na bado.
Do you want to advertise your business or product and you are on a budget? Then Marquee Africa is the site for you. To advertise, upload a picture or video clip of your business or product and let the clicks get you clients. Get 4,000 clicks for as low as 1,000 bob. Get the app on the Google Play Store or iOS App Store, or visit the website www.marquee.africa. Terms and conditions apply.
How much? For a ride?
We're going to town, not another continent!
For that price, we'd rather walk.
It's a report! Our flight was cheaper.
Seriously, don't you have a heart?
That thing? Of course it doesn't. Rather deal with real people. Download InDrive, agree on a fair price with your driver, and say goodbye to unfair rides. InDrive, people driven.
Hi, hi!
I am so excited to have joined MKU. The flexibility in the payment of fees makes education very affordable.
With over 165 fully accredited programs and the state-of-art learning facilities, you literally have the world in your hands in terms of career choice.
The learning is not only uninterrupted, but also supported through ICT. And within no time, you're done with your studies.
Join us and start your career journey.
Well, good evening once again and welcome to Insight Tonight. Tonight we want to talk about food security and we want to look at it through the lens of climate change. And with us tonight is somebody who's well versed with this. This is actually her forte. This is her bread and butter, so to speak. And she's here with us hopefully to share some insights for you and I to learn a thing or two about what we can do, about where we find ourselves. Karibu sana. With us tonight is Stella Kimani. You wear many hats. Take us a little bit through some of those hats, especially the ones that are relevant to us tonight.
Thank you. So I work for an organization called Welthungerhilfe, or WHH. It's a national INGO, and we work mostly around issues in food and nutrition security, but also food systems and food systems governance as well. I also wear another hat where I head a program that's called Strengthening Rural Governance for the Right to Adequate Food. So what we're trying to do is to look at how our food systems can be able to deliver not only food and nutrition security, but also the right to adequate food. That's in our constitution, you know, Article 43(1)(c) and 53(1)(c).
I like that. I like that because there's an element of, you know, a lot of people don't see that as a right.
Yeah.
You know, and a human right for that matter.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. Please continue.
Yes, and for us, I need to emphasize that for us, it's very clear that food is a right, not aid. And that's the approach that we work around. You know, making sure that we're empowering people to be able to sustain themselves within their own micro food systems. And lastly, my last hat, I'm also in the nutrition sector, and I'm the Deputy Secretary General for Nutrition Association of Kenya. So for me, it's very clear that food systems must deliver the ideal health and nutrition outcomes, right? That
Absolutely.
means safe food, healthy food, and nutritious food.
I like that. Good people, I told you we had the right person. So come on, let's join this conversation and learn a thing or two. Help us understand, right off the bat, where are we in terms of food security? I'm talking about Kenya and Africa as a whole.
So the statistics stand at 1 in every 3 people being food and nutrition insecure. Wow. And this is quite mind-boggling considering that we're in 2023. And for Kenya, very, very many years post-independence. And you do remember our first president, one of the problems that he said we have is njaa, you know? And 2023, yes, umaskini, njaa, na ujinga, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I won't discuss how far we are with the other two,
right.
But with njaa, you know, it's getting worse year by year. And this, of course, is contributed by a lot of factors and shocks and crises. We just are still not as much, but still within the COVID-19 crisis. We've had a lot of climate, issues. Basically, climate change is long-term change in weather and temperature patterns. And when growing up, we could tell which seasons, we expected rain, and when we needed to be ready with our, warmer,
planting,
and planting and all that. Unfortunately, it's gone.
It's out the window. It's unpredictable now.
Yes, and now you look at even the Met Department's predictions of the weather, and we realize that, it seems to have a mind of its own. It's predicted rain. Sometimes, it does not come through. We are coming, we are still recovering from failed at least 5 seasons of rainfall. So this has had a lot of problems, a negative impact on food and nutrition security. And, in addition to this, we've had a lot of wars and crises, like the Ukraine war that impacted a lot of our imports, especially for wheat, which, we import more than we produce.
And fertilizer as well.
Yes, and fertilizers as well. And there's just so much going on, and all this has had a very negative impact on food and nutrition security. And COVID-19 made a really bad situation even worse, because then a lot of Kenyans lost jobs. People could not be able to produce because, again, of the cost of inputs, agricultural inputs, from seeds to fertilizers and all the other agrochemicals that they require in the production system. So there are very many factors, multiple crises that have led to this. And if you look at our arid and semi-arid lands, we've also seen a lot of conflicts in those, inter-clan conflicts.
Yeah, for pasture and water.
For pasture and water, again, because of the climate situation we are in. Right? So we are now in a situation where currently even we're having the crisis with the Karamoja and Turkana, where we're having an issue in the inter-country, migration.
Right.
Yeah, so there are many crises that unfortunately have led us here. So when we say 1 in every 3 people in the population are hungry, that is a statistic that really should help us, or make us really wake up and take action.
Right.
Yes.
It's a very gloomy perspective, but it's a reality.
Yes.
But something tells me it's about to get worse. Tell me why.
Well, I think one of the reasons why bad situations get worse is because Kenya, we often react. We are not very proactive, unfortunately. I know the government has put in a lot of measures to try and prepare for some of these crises. For instance, we have an El Nino that has been predicted later in this year. And I know there are a lot of organizations, including ourselves, that WHH, that are actively involved in anticipatory action, or what we would call forecast-based action. And
is that the same as early warning systems? Or?
Yes. So the early warning systems tell us what is expected, right? So when you know that there's been predicted an El Nino, this means that you should be expecting to have a lot of rain, and that means, since our agriculture unfortunately is rain-fed, right? This is an opportunity for us to move our population and our food systems into irrigation type of agriculture. Right? So anticipatory action means that there's a lot of rain that is expected, and you start putting in measures, for instance, robust water harvesting systems that would then enable us to be able to harvest that water, because the kind of pattern we are in, we are expecting a lot of floods, then prolonged drought. So if there is predicted El Nino, this is the time government, together with all the other stakeholders, need to be working very closely together to harvest the rain so that we are able to practice irrigation in the period when we will have long periods of drought,
So
because now the pattern is a bit clearer.
Make hay while the sun is shining.
Yeah.
But are we doing that? I mean, are we actually listening to our experts? Are we paying attention to the early warning systems? Are we responding and not reacting in the right way?
I think sometimes we hear, but we don't necessarily listen and act, right? So
Why is that?
I think part of the reasons why is we've not really gotten strongly in systems working, right? So every time most people think about food and nutrition security, you're looking at the Ministry of Agriculture, right? But if you're talking food systems, we need to look at all the actors that are involved in the whole system, from the process when the food is in the agriculture, at the farm, with the farmer, until it gets to the table. That means that everybody across that chain needs to be involved proactively in preparing for all these climate change implications that we are having. So the farmer needs to be adequately supported with the right seeds for the right seasons, right? That means we have to revamp our agriculture extension services so that the farmer is able to get the right information for what to plant, when to plant, and understand the condition of their soils, but also understand the weather so that they're able to plant at the right time and not plant when it's too late or too early,
or in the wrong way.
Or in the wrong way. And also the importance of that is, unfortunately, in Kenya, we are depending on, if you look at the carbohydrate kind of crops that we depend on, most of the time it's maize for ugali, then we have rice and we have wheat. Those are the big three. So this means that almost every farmer in this country is struggling to plant maize in the wrong place.
Hold on, I want to come back to that point, the big three, and I suppose when we're looking at what we can do to remedy this situation, I want to come back to that in a second. But there's something you said a little bit earlier that I feel I'd really like our viewers to interact with. Tell us what you mean by this perspective to food, that it's a right and not aid. Tell us what that actually means practically and how it impacts or influences how we deal with food.
Yeah. So food being a right means that it is something, a right is something that each of us is entitled to by just being a human being, So that means that we are not supposed to be expecting the Kenyan citizens, who I prefer to call rights holders, right, to be provided to food or given aid, right, apart from those who are vulnerable and will need to. We have to improve access to food in terms of affordability, availability of this food in the market, in two ways. One, those who are able to produce the food should be supported to do it, right? This means maybe somebody has a piece of land or they have livestock. So there's a whole system that we need to put in place so that every citizen is able for some reason, in whichever way, to be able to provide for themselves food, right? So we've said you can produce it, or you can you can have the access or the ability to buy it from the market, right? And that means it has to be affordable. We don't all have to be farmers. Somebody has to be, a consumer at some point, right? So food being a human right means that the government must provide the enabling environment for everybody to be able to feed themselves.
I see.
And this means that this enabling environment, for instance, if I'm in right now in Nairobi, I need to be able to access information that enables me to understand how to do urban farming, right? And if I'm in the village or in a place where I have a piece of land, I need to be able to get the same services to understand my environment and understand how to be able to farm in that kind of environment. And right to food means that we are not we are not debating about, who should be fed or how to be fed. we are talking about making the food, first of all, available, meaning that we are producing
fundamentals,
it, right? Fundamentals. The food is available. 2, the food needs to be affordable. And that means that the cost of production needs to be affordable, the cost of energy needs to be affordable, which at the moment it's not. Therefore, you're ending up with, food prices because of the implications of energy on food production, and also the implications of seed costs and other input costs like fertilizers or on the production cost, right? That also means that the farmer in Nyandarua that is producing, cabbage and tomatoes is not supposed to be, going through periods of food loss and waste because they don't have the right infrastructure for it, right? So that's
a big issue.
And that's why we have to think,
loss.
Exactly, and that's why we have to think farm to fork, right? The farmer needs to grow the food in the right environment. That environment is already implicated by climate change. That's why I'm saying right now we should be harvesting, preparing to harvest water so that this farmer in Nyandarua is able, or wherever they may be, is able to practice agriculture, irrigation agriculture throughout the year. Now, once they've been able to, and obviously in that environment we have the cost of inputs that needs to be affordable but also healthy inputs. We need to make sure that also the farmers are not using dangerous agrochemicals that are affecting both the environment, the soil, and also the microorganisms that are within that environment, right?
And the consumer.
And the consumer.
By the way,
yes.
Let me jump in here a little bit. As you're talking, there's something that's ringing in my mind, and I would like you to just kind of pivot a little bit and shine some attention on this.
Yeah.
And as we shift towards something along solutions with the little time that we have.
Yes.
Someone suggested that perhaps our diet should adapt. Should be part of the climate adaptation or the adaptation to climate change that we need to do. You mentioned the big 3: maize, wheat, and rice. Those are the 3 things that we eat the most of.
And they are not traditionally our foods. They are imported crops.
Do you agree that our diet needs to change if we are to adapt to climate change properly?
It does. It does, because...
and to what?
It does, because the thing is, for instance, if you look at some of the places that, for instance, a farmer in Nyanza, that is in Asal areas that is struggling to grow maize, is not going to grow at all because the environment just does not work for it, So this means that this farmer needs to be supported with the right agriculture extension services to be able to understand the kind of drought-resistant crops that they are supposed to be growing. And these crops are even healthier than these big 3 that we keep rotating and really relying on,
Tell us a little bit
sorghum,
about that.
Millet,
Millet, sorghum? That's what we used to eat.
This is what our ancestors used to eat. And that's why I say, unfortunately, with industrialization and a lot of urbanization, we ended up commodifying food, right? So food became more of a commodity than something that you need for your health and for culture.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now, so you heard it from the nutritionist herself. We need to go back to basics. We need to go back to what our ancestors used to eat. Tell us as quick as you can, and I know this is a tall order.
Yeah.
There's a quick, tall order, short time. Okay. Quick as you can. Tell us what else we need to do. Governments, communities, people, you and I, what can we do to adapt better or to manage better where we find ourselves?
Number 1, government, anticipatory action, right? It's predicted you'll have El Nino, right? El Nino, I mean. Please, harvest the water.
Simple.
Simple.
I like that.
Honestly, it should be a bit of common sense.
Right.
Just harvest the water,
right.
Enable irrigation agriculture, shift the farming system from rain-fed agriculture, right? Private sector and NGOs. Support the government to be able to bridge the resource gaps that the government already has, right? So this means directly supporting communities, whether it's with agriculture extension services or it's even directly even digging of these boreholes or dams or even water pans and all these things that we need for water harvesting, right? And also just giving the people the information that they need to be able to shift to even sustainable energy systems that are going to enable us to stop cutting trees. And you know, like if you have cows, use biogas instead of cutting trees and having firewood as your source of fuel, right?
Brilliant.
And for households, harvest water when you have it. You know, harvest water when it's raining, when it rains. The water, the little water that you have, for instance, if you're in Nairobi, you can do farming on your balcony by just treating, even with something like ash, the water that you're using in your kitchen, and irrigating your crops with it. And you can be able to grow your vegetables right on your garden, you know, and even just being responsible with produce, you know. Don't waste food, you know.
I like that.
Let's do proper post-harvest management. You know, we can produce tomato paste and tomato sauce with all these tomatoes that we're losing from Nyandarua and all this other, you know, produce that we are making around the country. We just need to, you know, move to more sustainable energy like solar energy, which we have throughout the year in Africa, and also just support the families to be able to stop food loss and waste.
Tell you what, you're like I'm like a disciple and you're an apostle of food security. Here's your camera right behind me. I want you to talk to people, Kenyans, whoever's watching. Give us your parting shot from your heart. What is this one thing you'd like us to know as we wind up?
So, to the Kenyans, the right to food does not mean the right to be fed, and it is within your right to be able to demand that the government, you know, acts better by you, you know. Let government demand better from government so that we are able to get the resources that we need to shift from rain-fed agriculture to irrigation agriculture. That is the only way we are going to really effectively have sustainable food systems and also be supported and with post-harvest management systems. And most importantly, the smallholder farmers in this country need to be the ones making decisions for our food systems because they do know better. Unfortunately, some of those decisions, and many of them, are not made by the smallholder farmers. So we need to make sure that we bring farmers to the table because often, unfortunately, they end up on the menu or on the plate and they end up not benefiting from incomes that they should be getting from food systems.
Good people. Enough said. I couldn't have said it better myself. Ladies and gentlemen, Stella Kimani, thank you so much for joining us and thank you for your insight. We hope to have you here again because this is clearly a wide conversation.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Good people, thank you for choosing us to inform you this evening. My